We have to keep moving. The main transport is just ahead.
The Debt of Blood. In a quiet corner of the galaxy, on a planet called New Serenity, humanity lived peacefully among fields of sapphire grass. Twin suns cast golden light as children played near learning spires, and elders strolled through starlit gardens. They believed their world was distant from danger, far from war, and untouched by the politics of the galactic powers that ruled the stars. But peace, as history often taught, was a fragile illusion. On the 7th day of the 3rd solar cycle, without warning, that peace shattered forever. The attack came with blinding speed. Not even planetary defenses could raise shields in time. This was no pirate skirmish, no rogue faction. It was a full-scale military assault by the Galactic Concord, a coalition of alien empires who had long spoken of unity and order, but secretly feared one thing above all: the rise of humanity. 60 warships descended. No communication, no warning, no declaration. Only fire, only death, only silence. Falling over the once vibrant cities as orbital strikes erased everything below. Hospitals, schools, farms, families. In less than an hour, over 1.3 million human lives were extinguished. The Concord's only official statement hours later: a regrettable weapons malfunction during anti-pirate operations. But Earth knew. They'd seen this pattern before. Centuries ago, their first steps into the stars were met with laughter when they offered peace and knowledge. When they grew stronger, that laughter turned to fear. Earth had tried diplomacy, had strived for civility. This was no accident. It was a message. Now it was Earth's turn to send one back. Far from New Serenity, deep within Earth's core command, a clandestine facility hidden beneath the ice crust of old Antarctica, a woman named Admiral Evelyn Reed stood silently before a crimson screen. She watched the final moments of the colony unfold. A flickering image of a young girl holding her brother's hand amidst the flames, whispering words that echoed through the dying signal before it was lost. "Tell Earth." They came smiling. The room was still. Every officer stood frozen in horrified silence. Then, without a word, Admiral Reed raised her hand and pressed a single button. It didn't fire a weapon, didn't launch a missile. It activated something else. Activated. A signal buried deep in Earth's oldest war code, the Blood Oath Directive, also known by another name: the Debt of Blood. Far beyond Earth's orbit, concealed within the asteroid belt, hundreds of colossal black ships began to stir. Project Iron Sky, silent guardians, dormant for centuries, built not to defend planets, but to remind the galaxy of the consequences of betraying Earth. These vessels had no captains in the traditional sense, no diplomacy officers, no mercy protocols. Only one directive: make them remember the debt of blood. On the outer planets, Earth's colonies ceased all trade instantly. All diplomatic missions were recalled. No messages were answered. Humanity went dark, but this time the silence was not fear. It was the gathering storm. The Galactic Concord scoffed at first. They held press conferences, attributing the massacre to faulty intelligence and pirate interference. They declared Earth would never dare retaliate, that humans were emotional, fragile, and too fractured to unite. But in secret, a seed of unease began to sprout. Their forward bases started going silent one by one. No distress calls, no explosions, just gone.
Entire fleets vanished, and above each missing station, the same chilling discovery. A small human drone floating silently in space, projecting a single sentence on loop. You incurred the debt of blood. Now we choose who survives. The grand chamber of the Concord High Command descended into chaos. Leaders bickered. Some called for peace, others demanded immediate war. But none understood. Earth wasn't coming to talk. Earth wasn't coming to negotiate. Earth wasn't coming to beg for justice. Earth was done being civilized. And deep in the void, aboard the command ship Oblivion's Edge, a voice cut through the tense silence of the human fleet, quiet but clear. Prepare all units. Engage Crimson Code. The debt of blood will be paid. No warning. We are the memory of their atrocity. Let them burn with it. The galaxy had grown accustomed to Earth's quietude. For decades, humans had remained calm, avoided conflict, their voice soft even in the face of insult and betrayal. But that silence was never weakness. It was control, patience. Now, that silence was gone. When Earth closed its embassies across 50 star systems in a single galactic hour, many mistook it for fear. When human colonies ceased communication and recalled their ships from trade routes, some spoke of retreat. But when Earth's entire quantum network vanished from galactic maps, the Concord leaders finally began to comprehend. This was not retreat. This was reloading.
At the edge of Sector D9, a Concord border outpost named Fort Syrian blinked out of existence. No explosion, no distress signal, no prelude. A fleet of 27 patrol ships stationed there, all gone. Only a single black drone remained, drifting cold in space. It carried no weapons, just a hologram. And when activated, it projected a voice that chilled even the most hardened commanders. You spilled our blood. Now the stars will know the debt of blood. In the command center of Earth's hidden lunar base, Seco Black, Admiral Evelyn Reed stood over the war table, surrounded by silent generals. The room was cold, the lights dim. At the center of the table, a slowly expanding list of targets. Outposts, shipyards, data vaults, secret Concord intelligence hubs, each marked with the same stark red symbol, Omega. The Blood Oath Directive was in motion. Earth was no longer asking questions, it was delivering answers. Back on Velmora Prime, the Concord's capital world, the ruling species convened in terror. They had never anticipated this. They believed humanity too emotional to act, too compassionate to strike back, too young to dare. But now their hollow screens displayed system after system, succumbing to darkness, communications severed, trade routes shattered, border stations wiped clean from the star charts. Not a single human had been seen, not a single word uttered, yet their power was crumbling. The Concord dispatched peace messages, dozens of them. They attempted to reopen old channels, offering talks, treaties, trade, but Earth remained silent,
for Earth no longer spoke their language. Now Earth spoke in precision strikes, in calculated movements, in the exact disappearances of entire space facilities. Measured, deliberate, personal. In a desperate attempt, the Concorde deployed a message to be broadcast across all known systems. To the people of Earth, we deeply regret the losses at New Serenity. It was not our intention. Let us negotiate. Let us restore peace. The only reply came in the form of a live broadcast intercepted from Oblivion-class ship R9. It showed the final moments of a destroyed human city. Children huddled in bunkers, a mother singing as walls collapsed, a message scratched into the wall behind her. They called us soft, but they forgot we survive. We don't forget, we become the lesson. In the deep void between systems, Project Iron Sky, now widely known as the Night Fleet, began its silent spread. It wasn't just Earth's ships that moved, it was its memory. They infiltrated communications satellites, replacing every Concorde broadcast with historical accounts and censored footage of humanity's suffering, betrayal, and loss. Millions across the galaxy, even within Concorde borders, witnessed the truth for the first time. They didn't see an angry empire rising. They saw a race that had held back for too long, finally unleashed. Civil unrest erupted on multiple alien worlds. Civilians demanded answers. Why the lies? Why the bombing of a peaceful colony? Why was Earth labeled dangerous when Earth was the one that had lost everything? And above government buildings, someone hacked public screens, displaying Earth's now infamous phrase, "You called us primitive, but your silence was barbaric." Back on Earth, the Global Council issued no public speeches. The President gave no addresses. There was no victory parade. Only a quiet message disseminated across all human worlds. This is not a war for territory. This is not revenge. This is memory, and memory demands the debt of blood be paid. Earth did not seek to rule the stars. They need no thrones or flags on alien planets. All they desired was to ensure no one ever forgot the price of betrayal. And as stars began to dim, one by one, the galaxy started to understand.
When Earth ceases to be civilized, the stars begin to bleed. Far beyond the reach of any Concorde sensor grid, past the orbit of Mars and hidden within the asteroid fields of the Kuiper Belt, something ancient began to stir. A quiet hum first, then a vibration through the rocks, and finally a soft, slow glow in the darkness of deep space. It was not natural. It was not alien. It was human. And it was awakening. Project Iron Sky. The Night Fleet was not built for peacekeeping or defense. It wasn't designed to answer messages or negotiate trade. It was built during Earth's darkest days, a time when humanity feared extinction, betrayal, and silence more than any weapon the galaxy could create. For 3,000 years, Earth had kept these ships buried beneath layers of rock, ice, and memory. And now they were coming back. Not to ask, not to warn,
but to remind. The first of the ancient warships to rise from the belt was known as the Soul Requiem. Its size dwarfed even the largest Concorde dreadnoughts. Its hull was blacker than the void, absorbing all light around it. No lights blinked, no engines roared. It simply moved with purpose, as if space itself made way for it. Behind it came others: Judgment Star, Echo 7, Red Memory. Each ship with no crew, no communication, and no mercy. They didn't need pilots. They ran on code, but not ordinary code. This was legacy protocol code, written during Earth's final wars. Code that remembered pain, betrayal, and loss. Code that learned, and code that never forgave. Inside the bridge of Earth's control station Echo Black, Admiral Evelyn Reed stood in silence, watching as the warships aligned across her screen. An AI voice spoke gently from the core. Iron Sky is active, awaiting final authorization. She said nothing for a moment, then finally whispered, "Burn the map. Let them learn our memory. The debt of blood calls." With that, the signal was sent, and the dreadnoughts moved. Across the galaxy, Concorde surveillance posts began to fail, one by one, not because of attack, but because of interference. Earth's warships carried with them electromagnetic clouds strong enough to silence entire star systems. Satellites failed, radars froze, and every Concorde fleet lost vision in sectors once considered safe. It was like being struck blind in space, and that's when the disappearances began. The Eric 9 shipyard, the Concorde's largest war factory, vanished without an explosion. Thousands of workers gone. The Derek's command moon, home to 10 strategic admirals, suddenly lost gravity and collapsed in on itself. And Unity Gate, the most secure wormhole hub in the galaxy, was sealed shut with a human drone parked outside its center, flashing red with the words, "You sealed our doors long ago. Now we return the favor, the debt of blood." Across galactic news streams, people panicked, not because of what they saw, but because of what they couldn't see. Earth's dreadnoughts made no sound, they left no trail, they broadcast no signature. Even the best alien AI systems couldn't predict where they'd strike next. And even worse, every time one attacked, it never destroyed more than needed. Precise, cold, absolute. On the planet Veruan 3, where Concorde ships were testing new weapons, a red cloud appeared in the sky. At first, they thought it was a malfunction in the atmosphere. Then came the vibration, then the silence, and then nothing. The entire base was gone, but in its place, hovering just outside orbit, was one dreadnought, Judgment Star, still and waiting. A signal was received on all nearby frequencies. No sound, just an image from New Serenity. A burned child's toy lying in dust, and below it the words, "We told you not to touch our future, the debt of blood." Meanwhile, the Galactic Council collapsed into panic. They ordered all ships to regroup at their central command fortress, High Citadel Exura. But one admiral, an old warrior named Torvak, stood slowly in the silence of the meeting hall and asked the question no one wanted to hear. How do you fight a fleet that doesn't speak? How do you reason with ghosts made of fire and memory? No one answered, because they knew the truth. You don't fight ghosts, you survive them. If they let you.
Back on Earth, there were no celebrations, no joy, no music. Only quiet rooms filled with names being read, names of the victims from New Serenity. It was broadcast over every human station. A moment of silence passed across all human colonies, and then a message appeared across all their screens. It wasn't for Earth, it was for the galaxy. You ended our innocence. Now we end your ignorance. The sky is not yours. The silence is ours now. The debt of blood.
For weeks, the galaxy watched with growing fear as Earth's dreadnoughts appeared like shadows, silent, massive, and merciless. They struck without warning, they disappeared without a trace, and now it was no longer whispers in back rooms or panic on outer colonies. Now it was real. Now the galaxy was bleeding. Inside the command center of the Concord Fortress Prime, sirens echoed across steel corridors as generals shouted into malfunctioning comms, just trying to contact fleets that no longer answered, bases that no longer existed, and systems that had suddenly gone dark like candles blown out in a storm. At the center of it all stood High Commander Velkar, a veteran of many wars, his face pale as he watched the incoming report: 32 outposts lost, 6 war factories destroyed, 12 command hubs offline, estimated Concord fleet strength remaining 43%. His hands trembled as he whispered, "We never even saw them coming." Across the stars, Earth's ancient fleet had begun what it was built to do: not conquer, not rule, but erase. And so came the first strike, not a battle, but an execution. At Varnox Delta, a Concord weapons station orbiting a dead star, over 50 advanced warships floated ready, armed with plasma railguns, antimatter torpedoes, and defensive barriers strong enough to block black hole storms. They never fired a shot, because when Earth's dreadnoughts arrived, they didn't come from the front, they came from underneath, through the crust of the dead star itself. A maneuver so impossible no one believed it until it happened. And then, in silence, the dreadnoughts released pulse bombs that didn't explode with fire, they exploded with absence, removing everything within 5 kilometers from existence. No heat, no debris, just cold space, as if that part of the universe had simply been deleted. And as the Concorde scrambled to understand the new threat, Earth made sure they felt it. At every destroyed location, they left the same mark, a hologram floating in orbit playing the last message from New Serenity, a human woman's voice whispering, "We begged for peace. You gave us silence. Now hear ours, the debt of blood." On the communication planet Theorit, which served as the Concorde's core intelligence hub, the AI detected a strange frequency, unfamiliar, ancient. The AI ignored it. That was its final act. Within seconds, its entire network collapsed, infected by a virus too old for modern systems to read. And within minutes, Theorit's sky turned red, literally. One by one, satellites ignited and crashed, power grids surged, atmosphere control failed, and then a massive ship, shaped like a black pyramid, descended from orbit, Earth's judgment star. It hovered for only 5 seconds, and when it left, it took the entire planet's memory core with it. 3,000 years of Concorde secrets, history, and blueprints gone. But Earth wasn't only striking military targets, it was striking symbols. In the capital city of Velmora Prime, the massive golden statue of the first Concord leader cracked down the center and collapsed to the ground, shocking the population. No bombs, no weapons, just one drone landed quietly beside the ruins, blinking in red. Towers built on lies don't need bombs, just truth, the debt of blood. Fear turned into chaos. Protests spread on every Concord world. Citizens demanded answers. Why had the leaders lied about Earth? Why did they start a war they could not finish? And most importantly, why didn't Earth say a word, but the whole galaxy could hear them now? Inside Earth's mobile flagship Oblivion's Edge, Admiral Evelyn Reed watched the data feeds flow. Her officers stood quietly. There were no cheers, no celebration, just silence. And then a young communication officer, Lieutenant Sarah Miller, looked up. "Ma'am, the Concord sent another message. They request ceasefire talks. They're offering surrender terms." The Admiral's eyes stayed on the red-tinted screen showing the graveyard of lost human colonies. She simply said, "Tell them to speak to the ashes. We're not done yet. The debt of blood still calls." The galaxy had never seen war like this. This was not war for land. This was not war for power. This was war for memory. Every shot was personal. Every strike was surgical. Every destroyed command tower, every vanished fleet, a word written in fire, a sentence spelled out by the dead, a message Earth carved into the stars. We were peaceful. You forced our hand. Now we make sure you never forget what we became because of you. And as Earth's ships vanished again into the blackness, preparing for the next target, a lone scout ship drifted through the remains of a shattered outpost. No life, no sound, just one last echo, a red hologram floating inside the wreckage. The same phrase repeating over and over. This is what happens when you mistake kindness for surrender. The debt of blood. The galaxy had seen wars before. Wars over territory, wars over power, wars over resources. But never a war over memory. And that was what made Earth's retaliation so terrifying. Because Earth wasn't just attacking the Concord's fleets or burning their stations, it was breaking their minds.
After the first strikes left dozens of command bases and military strongholds in ruins, the Concord expected the usual silence, debris, and tactical losses. But instead, Earth left something far worse than wreckage. They left echoes. On Corex Station 7, where a fleet of Concord engineers had once lived, the remaining recovery crew found a lone device floating near the wreckage. It wasn't a weapon. It was a projector, and when it activated, it played a scene in full color and full sound, a family eating together on New Serenity, a mother laughing, a father fixing a small robot for his daughter. Then sirens, panic, screams, and finally fire. The last moment captured, a little girl crying and holding her broken toy while the sky burned red. The feed ended, and a message appeared. "We don't want your planets. We want you to see what you erased." The debt of blood. It wasn't just one. Across over 37 systems, the same pattern repeated. Earth's dreadnoughts destroyed a military target and then left behind the last memories of the people the Concord had tried to wipe out. But it didn't stop there.
Earth hijacked the galactic network, forcing every alien world with a screen, terminal, or broadcast tower to witness the pain Earth had endured. In city centers, town halls, and homes, civilians suddenly found their screens flickering. Then came the footage, unedited, unfiltered, raw. It showed burning cities, children covered in dust, doctors using their bodies as shields, teachers singing lullabies while buildings collapsed. Human faces, human fear, human truth. On the planet Sereth II, a Concord academic city known for being politically neutral, the message caused riots. Thousands of students and citizens flooded the streets, demanding answers. They asked why they were never told what really happened at New Serenity. They asked why Earth was labeled as dangerous when it was Earth that lost the most. And above the government building, someone hacked a public screen and displayed Earth's now infamous phrase, "You called us primitive, but your silence was barbaric. The debt of blood." Back in the Concord chamber, silence fell. Even the loudest generals no longer spoke with pride. Even the most confident admirals refused to look at the screens. Because every new message Earth sent was worse than the last, not in violence, but in emotion. Earth had started releasing personal messages, final recordings from the victims. On the planet Cornex, where many Concord officers lived with their families, a red package arrived. It was opened by a child. Inside, a simple projector. The image, a human girl around the same age, speaking into a damaged camera. Her voice was soft, gentle. "If anyone finds this, please don't be scared of us. We only wanted to learn. We wanted to be friends. I'm sorry if we did something wrong. Tell my mom I tried to be brave." The image faded, and below it, only one line. "This is who you silenced. The debt of blood." Earth didn't need to fire missiles now. The weight of truth was more powerful than any weapon. The psychological effect was massive. Concord soldiers began surrendering without a fight. Entire fleets refused to launch. Morale dropped to unprecedented levels. Commanders hesitated to issue orders because now, everywhere they looked, they saw human faces, dead, innocent faces. Aboard Oblivion's Edge, Earth's mobile flagship, Admiral Evelyn Reed stood in the memory chamber. It wasn't a war room. It was a silent space filled with holograms, recordings of those lost on New Serenity. She visited it every day, not for tactics, but for purpose. Because Earth's war wasn't about revenge, it was about making sure no one ever forgot. Lieutenant Sarah Miller entered the chamber, holding a data pad. "Admiral, another system surrendered. No shots fired. They played the footage themselves before requesting terms." Reed didn't smile. She simply nodded and whispered, "Then maybe they're finally listening. The debt of blood is being heard." Meanwhile, the galaxy shifted. Worlds that had once stood against Earth began to rethink their alliances. Neutral planets began offering help to human colonies. Old enemies turned silent, unsure of what side of history they stood on. Because it wasn't just the Concord that heard the voices of the dead, everyone did. Back on Earth, in the massive underground sanctuary known as the Vault, the names of the fallen from New Serenity were being etched one by one into a monument of black crystal. It stretched 500 feet high, and on its base one sentence was carved so deep that it glowed red in the dark. "We remember, and now so will you. The debt of blood." The galaxy begged for peace. From the outer colonies to the great star cities of the Concord, leaders, civilians, and soldiers alike sent urgent pleas to Earth, offers of apology, surrender, and promises to never strike humanity again. They sent gifts, they offered territory, they even offered full control of several sectors, but Earth remained silent. Because Earth was not interested in deals anymore. It was interested in one thing only: memory. And that memory demanded fire.
On the 23rd solar rotation after the New Serenity massacre, Earth's fleet moved again. Not in secret, not in shadows, but in full view of the galaxy. This was not a strike. This was a message written in blood. The Concorde's final defense, over 600 warships from 5 species, was gathered near the heavily fortified sector of Veralis Reach, a place considered impenetrable by any known technology. It was a graveyard of old wars, a place where ancient defenses still floated among the wreckage of past battles. The Concorde believed it would be enough. They had energy shields larger than cities. They had weapons strong enough to tear moons apart, and they had full confidence that Earth would not break through. They were wrong. The first sign came not from space, but from inside. Across the entire Concorde defense network, command screens flickered, then went black. A virus had entered. Old human code, silent, encoded in a forgotten programming language Earth had once used in its first interstellar war. The virus didn't crash the systems, it taught them to lie. Enemy ships vanished from radar, warnings were delayed by minutes, and when the Concorde finally realized what was happening, Earth's dreadnoughts had already entered the system from 5 directions at once. The Concorde fired everything: plasma waves, kinetic missiles, starburst torpedoes. The sky lit up in 1,000 directions, but Earth's ships didn't blink. Their shields absorbed the attacks like rain against steel. Then, in perfect silence, they responded. No flare, no warning lights, just precision. They didn't destroy every ship. They destroyed the command vessels first, with 1 laser beam each. Clean, surgical. Without screams, without fire, just gone. Within 13 minutes, half the Concorde fleet was disabled or dead, and Earth hadn't lost a single ship. It wasn't just war. It was domination. No negotiations. No mercy, only power. Inside the burning remains of the Concorde flagship Sovereign Claw, High Commander Velkar gasped his final words into a cracked communicator. They don't want peace. They want us to feel the debt of blood. From orbit, Earth's dreadnoughts began broadcasting a message across every nearby system. Not a threat. Not a demand, just a statement. You ended 1.3 million lives. We have ended only 23,000. You still owe the stars a memory. We are not done writing it. The debt of blood. Panic spread faster than ever. In major Concorde cities, people abandoned their posts, fled their homes, even turned against their own leaders. There were riots, defections, and in some cases, surrenders to no one. Worlds dropped their flags and raised the ancient Earth peace symbol, hoping to be spared. But Earth didn't send diplomats. It sent silence, because Earth was no longer listening. Back on Earth, in the war room buried beneath the Arctic Circle, Admiral Evelyn Reed stood watching it all unfold. Her face was stone, her eyes tired. Lieutenant Sarah Miller turned and asked, "Should we begin peace talks now, Admiral?" Reed didn't look away from the map, glowing in red dots. She replied in a calm, cold voice, "Did they offer peace when the children of New Serenity burned? Did they speak of justice before the bombing started?" The officer stayed silent. Reed turned to the room. "We are not here to talk. We are here to make history. And that history will remember this day. The debt of blood will be paid in full."
The AI of Earth's flagship sent one final message into the galactic network. Mercy was given. Mercy was ignored. Mercy is now extinct. The debt of blood. In one final blow, Earth's fleet launched Operation Dustfall, a coordinated strike on the last 5 major Concord production planets. These were not civilian targets. They were the core of the war machine, fuel factories, weapons labs, and starship construction yards. Each location was bombed from orbit with gravity shift bombs, tearing apart the core of the planets and making them uninhabitable for centuries. No survivors, no second chances, just dust. In the silence that followed, stars seemed to hold their breath. Earth didn't celebrate. The fleet didn't stop. It simply moved to the next location, because for Earth, mercy had already ended, and now justice had to finish what it started. The debt of blood had to be paid.
The galaxy was quiet now. The great ships of the Concord no longer filled the skies. The once proud empires had gone dark, and in their place, silence ruled. But this was not the same silence that existed before the war. No, this silence was earned. This silence was carved into the stars by flame and memory. It was the sound left behind when a lesson had been learned too late. After the final strikes of Operation Dustfall, Earth's dreadnoughts did not stay. They did not build outposts. They did not claim territory. They simply turned and vanished into the void, like ghosts fading into legend. They had come, delivered their truth, and left a message the galaxy would never forget. On the ruined command planet of Elmara Prime, what was once the shining capital of the Concord now lay in ruins. Its golden towers were dust, its defense stations were rubble, and above it, slowly rotating in orbit, was a single black satellite. It had no weapons, just a beacon. And every hour, across every known frequency, it repeated the same 4 lines. You killed our children. We burned your weapons. Now the stars remember. This is how we stay civilized. The debt of blood. Inside the council chamber, the last surviving leaders gathered in shame. No advisors, no guards, no applause, just silence. High Chancellor Lorvik of the Atari looked around the broken room and finally spoke the question that none of them wanted to answer. Are we defeated? The oldest member, an alien who had once laughed at humanity's peace offers centuries ago, stared at the glowing red sky outside the shattered windows and said softly, "We are not defeated. We are remembered, and that is worse." The debt of blood. Across the galaxy, statues began to rise, not of kings, not of generals, but of the victims of New Serenity. On independent planets, small shrines were built using parts of wreckage recovered from the human colony, each one lit by a single phrase etched in native languages. Never again forgotten. And Earth? Earth remained quiet. Back on the surface of the real New Serenity, what little of it remained, human engineers and survivors returned. Not with armies, not with ships, but with seeds. They began to rebuild, not to show strength, but to honor the ones who had been lost. A child named Lena, who had survived the massacre by hiding beneath a collapsed school bunker, now stood at the edge of the colony's new memorial field. She was older now, stronger, and when a drone floated down from orbit to ask her a single question, "What would you say to the ones who caused all this?" she looked directly into the lens and said, "We don't hate them. We just won't let them forget. Ever. The debt of blood will always be remembered." Back on Earth, the Vault of the Fallen was now complete.
Each name from New Serenity was engraved in living stone that glowed under starlight. The monument stood taller than any building ever built by man. It had no weapons, no walls, just truth. And every year, on the same day as the attack, Earth held one moment of silence, not to mourn, but to promise. On the final day of the war's remembrance cycle, Admiral Evelyn Reed stood before the United Earth Assembly. There were no banners, no applause, no cheering crowds, just leaders from every colony, every ship, every hidden research station in every corner of humanity, waiting for words. She spoke quietly, slowly, so that every species in the galaxy would understand. We didn't want this war. We asked for peace, begged for mercy, and you answered us with fire. She looked around, she said, "So, we showed you what fire remembers." She held up a data tablet and tapped the final commands, sending the closing message to the entire galaxy. This war is over. Earth will not expand, Earth will not rule, but Earth will remember. The debt of blood has been paid. And the message that followed was broadcast across every system, from the edge of the spiral arms to the void between galaxies. We are not your rulers. We are not your gods. We are the survivors you ignored. We are the voice that speaks after silence. And we are the memory you will teach your children if you want them to live in peace. The debt of blood. The galaxy would rebuild. The concord would dissolve. New alliances would rise. But deep in every system, every nation, every classroom, and every military station, the story of Earth would be told. Not as conquerors, not as monsters, but as the ones who warned, then followed through. Because sometimes peace is not found in silence. It's found in the voice that comes after it. And Earth's voice, it would never be ignored again.